Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this special program. This month is Activist Appreciation Month at In Defense of Animals, and we celebrate your activism by hosting special events and providing special resources. And today is our very first activist author interview, and we'll be interviewing Dr. Neal Barnard today. So my name's Lisa Levinson. I'll be your host for this program. I run the Sustainable Activism Campaign at In Defense of Animals, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dr. Barnard before we get started today. Dr. Barnard is the president of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, a faculty member of the George Washington University School of Medicine, and a fellow of the American College of Cardiology. In 2016, he founded Barnard Medical Center in Washington, D.C. to create a new model that integrates nutrition into conventional medical care. His federally funded diabetes research revolutionized the nutritional approaches to type 2 diabetes, and he now aims to empower readers with life-changing information on hormones and health. So we're here today to celebrate the launching of his new book, and that is called Your Body in Balance, The New Science of Foods, Hormones, and Health. Hi, Dr. Barnard. How are you today?
Hi there, Lisa. Great to be talking with you today.
Yes, it's so nice to speak with you too. I'm so glad you could join us. It's really quite a treat. So today we're going to be doing an interview style. So I will be asking you a few questions, if you don't mind, and then we'll get to hear your brilliant answers. So my first question today is, how did you discover that foods could help hormone-related problems?
Oh, Lisa, I got to tell you, it was kind of an accident at first. I was sitting at my desk and the phone rang, and it was a young woman who said she couldn't get out of bed that day because she had such terrible cramps that she just couldn't function. And, you know, many women have menstrual cramps to one degree or another, but for maybe 1 in 10 or so, they're just off the scale, terrible. And she had a business trip the next day, and she said, what am I going to do? So as I was thinking about her situation, I thought, okay, I can give you painkillers to get you through the next couple of days, but how are we going to stop this from happening next week, next month, and the month after that? And so I prescribed something that I don't think any doctor has ever prescribed for menstrual pain before, and that was, I said, would you like, as an experiment, to do 2 things? No animal products for the next month, and keep oils to a bare minimum also, so we're not going to have a lot of greasy foods. She said, well, I'll try anything. She did it, and the next month she called me up and said, this is amazing. My period came, no symptoms at all. And it stayed that way as long as she stayed on the diet. But if she brought greasy stuff back into her diet, then the pain would come at the end of the month. So I thought, that's intriguing. I then did a randomized controlled clinical trial of this method in a larger group of women with the Georgetown University Department of OBGYN. And we found that it really works. And so anyhow, there was a reason why I thought this would work, and that is that menstrual pain is caused by estrogens that cause the lining of the uterus to expand, and if there's a little bit too much estrogen, it expands too much, and that leads to too much cramping at the end of the month. And I knew that a very low-fat, high-fiber diet would bring estrogens down, but nobody had ever applied it to this before. So anyway, as time went on, we started exploring many different applications of this for lots of different conditions. And it's now clear that hormones, which are the messengers of the body, they direct body functions, can be influenced by foods. And so it's not just your waistline or your diabetes or your cholesterol level that's influenced by your diet. It's many, many aspects of health. So that's why I decided that Your Body in Balance had to get out into people's hands so that so many parts of life could get back into balance for them.
Wow, that's an incredible inspiration, how you decided to do that. Thank you for giving us that really important detail.
Well, Lisa, I got to tell you, there's one more piece of this.
Oh, sure.
In the course of this research study that we were doing, we asked all the women not to take hormone-related medications, because if they were taking, say, birth control pills, that's a hormone that would maybe disguise what the diet was doing. So we asked all the women, if you're sexually active, please use something other than the pill. And one of the women said, don't worry about me. My husband and I we don't use any contraception because a long time ago, we were discovered that one of us was infertile. We were both examined. It wasn't him, it was me. She said, I don't ovulate, so we don't use contraception, so forget about it. She starts the vegan diet. It's a vegan health diet, low in fat. The second month that she's on that diet, she came into the research center and she said, Dr. Barnard, I've got bad news, I've got good news. I said, well, what is it? She said, the bad news is I'm leaving the study. I said, well, what's the good news? And she says, I'm pregnant. It was kind of a surprise. And several years later, I saw her. She had 3 children now. So here's the point. She had this idea that she was infertile. She was going to carry that idea with her for a long, long time and forever. The problem was she was out of balance. And foods can get your hormones back into balance. And so whether it's cramps or PMS or infertility, those are just a few of the things that, but hopefully we'll touch on a whole lot more during this conversation.
Wow, that's really interesting. And also to me personally, because I actually, after going vegan, started to menstruate again. So I had a condition that related to infertility as well. So I personally have an interest in that. Thank
Oh,
you.
it's amazing. When I talk to people, it's everywhere. This is the thing that nobody talks about because I think it couldn't have anything to do with food. When I wrote Your Body in Balance, in fact, if you don't mind, let me just show you this. This is the book. And at the bottom, it says Menus and Recipes by Lindsay S. Nixon, who you may know as one of the terrific recipe developers. And Lindsay came through. She made 65 fabulous recipes. They're easy to make, relatively few ingredients, really super. I just love what Lindsay's done. She sent this to me with a note that I had to put in the book. She said, Dr. Barnard, I didn't tell you this, but these very same diet changes is what tackled her own menstrual issues. And that's not why I brought her into this project. I brought her in because she's just better at this than anybody. But everybody's got issues of various kinds that they never connected with the foods that they eat. And so the good thing is that you may have all kinds of unusual things, hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism, mood disorders, acne, where you plug in the right kind of food changes, and we can often solve those problems.
Wow, this book is going to be so helpful for so many, many people. Thank you for writing it. And actually, I have some more questions for you. Are medications overused?
Yes. Oh, for sure. Well, you walk into any pharmacy, and here's the young, just for the conditions we talked about, here are young women lined up, say, for birth control pills to get their cycle back on track. And go into any pharmacy, look at how many painkillers there are, from ibuprofen of various kinds and Midol and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And how many doctors do you know who ever suggested that a woman with cycle problems should go vegan? They're not thinking about these things at all. But it's not just medications, it's also procedures. I tell the case in Your Body in Balance of a woman named Catherine, who was in the Air Force, tucking into cheese a little bit too much. She had a thing for mac and cheese and all these kinds of things. And she started gaining weight, but she also developed pain in her abdomen. And as the months went by, the pain was getting worse and worse and worse. And she finally had an evaluation where the doctor did a laparoscopy, where you look inside the abdomen. And the doctor said, we know what the diagnosis is. This is endometriosis. That's a condition where cells from inside the uterus are going outside and they're seeding all around in the abdomen. And they cause terrible pain. They sweat. On laparoscopy, you can see them, and they're swelling masses it's just a mess. And they can strangle the fallopian tubes, leading to infertility. They cause all kinds of problems. This is what she had. They tried medical treatments. They tried hormone treatments. Nothing was getting her better. So finally, the doctor said, well, you could have a hysterectomy. I know that sounds serious, but you're already infertile. So what the hell? This will make your pain go away. And she didn't like the idea because she and her husband were newlyweds. And they hadn't started their family yet. But she said, I can't function like this. So, okay. So they scheduled the hysterectomy for 6 weeks later. During those 6 weeks, she saw a nutritionist. Actually, a friend dragged her to a nutritionist. And the nutritionist said, vegan diet, keep oils really low, exactly our approach. She put it to work and she started feeling better. And she's feeling better and better. But dutifully, she went in for the surgery on the day of the surgery. The doctor did a laparoscopy. You can actually do the hysterectomy through laparoscopic surgery. And so the doctor opened her up. But an hour later, in the recovery room, she opened her eyes. She came out of anesthesia. And there was the doctor. And he said, you know, I didn't do it. I didn't do the procedure. I opened you up, but I looked around and your endometriosis is effectively gone. I've never seen this before. So I didn't take a uterus out. It's still there. Anyway, her mother's in the room. So her mother says, doctor, she went vegan. So the doctor says, stop it. You know, listen, the doctor said, foods do not cause endometriosis, and a vegan diet, nothing, none of this mumbo jumbo. This is not going to make it go away. There's only one explanation for this, and this is a miracle. And so the doctor writes miracle in her chart, I guess. Anyhow, she never had the procedure. She still has her uterus. Her endometriosis did go away. She has 3 kids now. And in fact, Catherine, her last name is Lawrence, Catherine Lawrence, she joined the Physicians Committee to be a Food for Life instructor. She's got a center in Dallas where she teaches other women how to take back their health. And by the way, she's doing a seminar in late April in Dallas. And I hope people will actually join us for that because it's really super inspirational. So anyway, so this is the long-winded answer to a good question, which is, are pills used too much? The answer is, you said it, and not just pills, but also surgical procedures. There is a role for medication, there's a role for surgery and all these things, including endometriosis. But let's start off with getting the body in balance. If we can use high fiber, low fat foods to tone down the estrogens, then the estrogens don't push so hard on the endometrial lining, on the endometrial growth. And to state the obvious, these things don't kill you. But the same estrogenic changes that can reduce the cramps and reduce the endometriosis and reduce infertility, these same beneficial hormone changes that help all these things will also, we believe, reduce the risk of breast cancer and reduce the risk of dying of breast cancer if a woman has been diagnosed. And we've left men out, but so far, but for men, the benefits are as greater or greater as well.
Well, we'll have to hear about that too. So here's another question for you. Do you feel that nutrition should play a bigger role in the medical approach to breast cancer, which you just mentioned, and other hormone-related cancers?
Yes. Every October, women and men march for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and it's all about getting mammograms and mammograms for poorer people and all these things. And you know, that's good as far as it goes. But we really need to use nutrition. There are several ways that it works. First of all, if you trim down, I'm talking about getting rid of unwanted body weight. The risk of postmenopausal breast cancer goes down significantly. And of course, what's the best way to trim away unwanted weight? A low-fat vegan diet. Even after diagnosis, there is abundant evidence that avoiding high-fat dairy products will help. There's a frightening study. Women previously diagnosed with breast cancer, those who consume the most high-fat dairy, I'm talking about butter, whole milk, that kind of stuff, high-fat cheese, they had 49% higher risk of dying of their cancer compared to the women who did not eat those things. And yeah, we really, to deal with human health without thinking about nutrition is like trying to figure out how to work your car without ever putting gas in it, without thinking about what goes into it. Nutrition is the fuel for your body, and it's essential to take it into account and to use it.
Wow, that's key information that many people will benefit from. So I'm wondering, insulin is the hormone that plays a central role in diabetes.
Right.
And you have done quite a lot of research in that particular area. Tell us about your findings.
2003, the US government funded our research study that was designed to try to find a better way for treating type 2 diabetes. And the current approach at that time was to say, if you've got type 2 diabetes, you need to lose weight, so cut calories and limit carbohydrate, that kind of stuff. So that was the best current diet. And we compared that with a low-fat vegan diet in a randomized fashion. We brought in people who had type 2 diabetes. We half got one diet, half got the other. And the plant-based diet was 300% better at improving blood sugar or blood glucose control. We used a test called hemoglobin A1C. And in people who made no medication changes, they weren't changing their exercise, nothing, the vegan diet was 300% better. So and that's when we started to see something that really people didn't talk about before. In the 1990s and before that, the saying was, once you have diabetes, you'll always have diabetes. The idea was, take this seriously. And it was a well-meaning statement. The idea was, you've got to take this seriously. You've got to plan for the rest of your life. You may need to be on medication. Don't get lax about it, However, in the course of this research study, I will never forget, there was a man named Vance who had diabetes all up and down his family tree, and his own diabetes was in poor control. Went on the diet. Over a year, he lost 60 pounds. Stopped his diabetes medications. His hemoglobin A1C, which is our main diagnostic blood test, fell from diabetes to pre-diabetes to normal, absolutely flat out normal. And I had his lab slip in my hand, Lisa. I got to tell you, I paced around in my office for about 15 minutes trying to think, can I tell him he doesn't have diabetes anymore? Because he didn't. And at that time, you couldn't say that. Now, nowadays, you can say it because we are not the only ones doing this now. I mean, it's become commonplace that you can reverse diabetes. But oh my goodness sakes, it was the most exciting thing in the world. I got to tell you, Lisa, my dad was a farmer until he was old enough to leave. And he hated the cattle business. He went to medical school. He then became the diabetes expert for Fargo, North Dakota. Every night he would come home around 6 o'clock. He'd throw it on his medical bag. Diabetes was his area of expertise. I never once heard him say, in his entire career, I never once heard him say that anybody with diabetes ever got better. They were fighting a losing battle in every single case. And the whole idea was, just keep your medications up. Let's do the best we can, and we'll stop the complications to the extent we can. They knew that the average patient was losing 10 years of life or 12 or more. They knew that the eye complications, the kidney complications occurred in so many patients. Anyway, I wish I could go back in time and just say, hey, Dad, there's something about brown rice and broccoli that might help you a little bit. So anyway.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. That really sounds like a milestone moment for sure.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was. But many people are doing so well with this now, I'm happy to say.
So is a vegan diet helpful for type 1 diabetes or only type 2?
Our research was on type 2, but we're starting to look at type 1. Type 2, for people who don't know what we're talking about, type 2 means that the pancreas, which is behind your belly button, it's a type 2 diabetes. The pancreas is making insulin, but the cells of the body are resisting it. And that means that insulin is trying to push sugar from the bloodstream into the cell. But insulin can't do its job. For some reason, it's not working. And that was kind of as far as people went. We now know that there's a reason for that the cells are filled with fat from stuff you've been eating. And so that's why insulin isn't working. And so a vegan diet takes that fat out, and then now insulin can work. Type 1, the cells that make insulin have been killed. And so you need to inject it. But the same diet is still the diet to follow, a low-fat vegan diet that does two things. It reduces your insulin requirement, and it reduces the complications quite dramatically. Or at least we believe it does. What kills a person with type 1 diabetes is not a high blood sugar. It's cardiovascular disease. So you want to baby your arteries, no cholesterol, no animal fat, really be on a heart-healthy diet to the extent you can.
Wow, I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, if anybody is watching this, somebody's got type 1, encourage them to do it. They'll freak out. They'll say, no, if I eat fruit, my blood sugar will rise. It will initially. Give it several days. See what happens. Same for type 2. What we think is happening is that there's insulin resistance in both type 1 and 2, and you're tackling that, and see if you don't need a lot less insulin very soon.
Okay, great suggestion. So I have a slightly different topic of the next question. This one does relate to men. Many men struggle with erectile dysfunction, and I'm just wondering, what is the role of nutrition in what's called ED?
Oh man, I'm so glad you asked that. This scenario goes on every single day in every primary care clinic. The guy walks in, he says to the doc, "Hey, I can't function, da 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 da. What's the matter with me? Am I sick?" And the doctor says, "You need some Viagra," writes out a prescription. The guy walks out happy. Huge mistake. Huge mistake. The doctor, if the doctor is thinking, he will throw down his pen, he will leap to his feet and race out the door and catch that patient before he goes down the elevator and say, "Come back into my office. I forgot to tell you one really important thing." Patient sits down and the doctor explains to him, "Viagra, yeah, maybe it'll help you perform tonight. But the reason that you have erectile dysfunction, it's not performance anxiety. You've got narrowed arteries. You've got atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is the condition where too many particles of cholesterol are circulating in the blood. They enter the artery walls and the arteries start getting narrowed. And because the arteries to a man's private parts are pretty narrow already, that's one of the first places where you can see the results of a lack of blood flow. And for a man, the lack of blood flow to his private parts means he doesn't get an erection anymore. What the doctor then explains to the man is, this doesn't just hit you there. It hits you in your heart. You've probably got atherosclerosis in your coronary arteries and in the carotid arteries to your brain. What I mean is that you are at higher than normal risk for a heart attack or stroke. And this could easily happen to you within the matter of the next few years. So let's start you on a low-fat vegan diet to open up those arteries in your heart and the arteries to your brain. And what surprisingly happens is that very often Hank doesn't need Viagra anymore either, because it opens up the arteries there too. So the doctor has just saved that man's life.
Wow, that's amazing. He saved his life and made him a happier man as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure how his wife felt about all this, but yes, that's the idea.
So moving on to thyroid problems, I know those are very common as well. Can foods help thyroid problems too?
Yeah, yes, and so thyroid makes thyroid hormone, and the thyroid is at the base of your neck, and the thyroid hormone goes into your blood, and now it's going to the various cells of the body to make sure that their energy is up. Thyroid hormone is think of it as an energy regulator. If you're hypothyroid, low thyroid, you feel cold, you feel sluggish, you can even feel depressed. It's just, you're like running on empty, and you can gain weight. In fact, let me give you an example. There was a neurosurgeon named Mike, who I described in Your Body in Balance. He's a real person. And he's a generally athletic guy, generally healthy. But he goes for his annual physical and he's a little hypothyroid. And, maybe gained a pound or two, nothing too serious. The next year, same story. The next year. After about 5 years, his doctor says, "Mike, we've known each other for how long? Maybe it's time for you to actually take some thyroid medication to replace what your body is not making." As fate would have it, Mike and his family had decided to do something different. They decided to go on a completely vegan diet. He did, and very rapidly his thyroid recovered. He lost 7 or 8 pounds, his energy got better. He was now healthy. Why does this happen? The first reason is a pretty easy reason. To make thyroid hormone, your thyroid needs iodine. Iodine is in not very many foods. It's an iodized salt, but if you're having sea salt or Himalayan salt, you're not getting the iodine. But let's say you have a taste for a seaweed salad or vegan sushi. The seaweed, sea vegetables are loaded with iodine, and that packs it in for you. The other thing, though, is that most cases of low thyroid are an antibody reaction. Antibodies are being made in your body in response to something. And when you go on a plant-based diet, it appears that those antibodies are less likely to form. those antibodies can attack the thyroid, either shutting it down or turning it up too much. And for whatever reason, researchers have found that vegans are the least likely population to have either hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism. And we think that's because they're not having dairy, they're not having meat, they're having the antigens that trigger this autoimmune attack. So anyway, Mike is just one of many cases. And I personally, I think we need a lot more research about thyroid diseases and to see how diet affects them, because no one, to my knowledge, has done a randomized double-blind trial of hypothyroid patients, putting them on a vegan diet to see how they do. But we have seen so many people get better that I think it really needs to be tried.
That sounds really interesting. I know a lot of people who have thyroid issues. So
Yeah, they do.
yeah.
And so the answer is to get on as clean a diet as you can. No animal products, keep the oils low, especially, I suspect, I cannot prove this, but I suspect that dairy might rise to the fore. The reason I suspect that is that we see dairy implicated in a lot of autoimmune conditions like asthma or rheumatoid arthritis. And when people get away from dairy, they often get better. But there's nothing like a research study to try it, and we have not done that one yet.
Also interesting about the arthritis, that's another condition. But let me ask you another question first that also affects people or women, particularly as we get older. So are there any foods that help with menopause?
You know, yeah, the short answer is yes, but I hear also I think we need more research. So many women, you know, around age 50, 51, whatever, start to get hot flashes. And a lot of other things go with it. Sleeplessness, because if hot flashes wake you up 5 times a night, you're going to feel crummy in the morning. Mood can get somewhat labile or changeable. Your memory will start playing tricks on you. And then there can be sexual issues too, where vaginal dryness can kick in. And a lot of things have been tried, different supplements like black cohosh and some others. The one that I have to say I'm most impressed with is soy isoflavones. Some people will do it just with soy foods. Other people do it with more concentrated soy proteins. And they don't affect everybody, but in research studies, maybe 40% or something like that of women notice that their hot flashes go. And I suspect if the remaining group that didn't benefit, if they tried a different dose, it might be that they would benefit as well. We don't fully understand this, but soy is an interesting thing. It seems to attach to the what's called the beta estrogen receptor, which is not the one that causes cancer. Soy appears to reduce cancer risk, and also seems to help, at least for some women, to deal with these symptoms.
Very interesting. I will have to share that with some people I know in my age
I
range.
should say, if a woman has extra weight, losing that extra weight helps too. So however you get it off, but the best way to get it off, of course, is vegan. But this is a time to be really careful about fatty foods, like guacamole and peanut butter and nuts, because they will slow down the weight loss that you may be aiming for.
Okay. And what about mood problems? What role do foods play in like depression or anxiety?
This really, I think, is another medical frontier, and one that I'm particularly eager to cross, because depression is first of all, depression is extremely common. The treatments for it have side effects. The condition itself is dangerous. I mean, suicide is a real possibility. And we did a research study years ago with Geico, the car insurance company. And we did this because their office is about 4 blocks from my office. And they have a huge national headquarters with 2,500 people working there. So we instituted a vegan diet at Geico. In the cafeteria, they had vegan foods, and anybody who wanted to go vegan could get a weekly class. And they loved it. And then we did another Geico study in 10 different cities all around the United States: Dallas, Macon, Georgia, Buffalo, San Diego, and elsewhere. Anyway, the first thing we found is that people do lose weight. The second thing we found is that if they have diabetes, it gets better. But we also tracked lots of other things. We noticed that moods started to improve. And we tested these with standardized questionnaires where people didn't really know what we were looking at, but we were checking for many kinds of symptoms. But we specifically looked at depressive symptoms and anxiety symptoms. And we noticed they were getting significantly better. And I thought, well, why the heck is that? Well, First of all, you're losing weight and your diabetes is getting better. You're not on so much medication. Anybody's going to feel better. You're part of a group. We're making you feel good. All that could help. However, other researchers started to find the same thing. They were independent from us. And what they have found is, number one, there is some evidence that people who eat a fair amount of meat, their mood is not as good. People who eat a lot of specifically vegetables and fruits, their mood seems to be better in epidemiologic studies. There's a lot of noise in here, but generally that's what the research is showing. And then researchers have specifically tried vegetarian diets versus fish diets versus meat diets. And the more the diet is plant-based, the more effect it seems to have on mood. We need more research here, but the two big hypotheses, frankly, they're really cool. One is gut bacteria. You've got gut bacteria. They change based on what you eat. So a meaty diet causes certain bacterial species to flourish. A plant-based diet causes other bacterial populations to flourish. In turn, the gut bacteria can influence your mood. They apparently make compounds that go in through the bloodstream and affect the brain. The other thing is that we were talking about rheumatoid arthritis or asthma or hypothyroidism. These are autoimmune conditions. These are signs of inflammatory processes. It turns out that in depression, you see inflammation in the brain to a degree. So we're getting the pro-inflammatory foods out and maybe the inflammation in the brain settles down. So I'm really excited about this. And what I would like to do is marry two things, a healthy vegan diet and exercise, because there's a pretty good evidence that lacing up your sneakers and getting your heart pumping is good for your mood. So I would like to take a group of people, randomly assign them to maybe standard treatment or vegan diet plus exercise plus a coach who's going to really make sure you do it and you don't say no. And then let's just see who does better. And I guess my hope would be that we can spare some people medication and side effects from medication and give them a more lasting treatment. So stay tuned. Let's see where that goes.
Yes, I will stay tuned. I'm eager to hear about that. So say a person wants to adopt a plant-based diet. How would they start that?
You know, everybody has their own approach. Some people go stepwise, just a little change here and there. I sort of like to push our patients in the deep end. In other words, we don't take a lot of time. We do it fast, but you still break it into steps. First of all, I should say the first step is, why do I want to do it? You have to set what your purpose is. So let's say your father had prostate cancer, like my dad did. Dairy products are strongly linked to prostate cancer. A vegan diet was shown by Dean Ornish to help even after diagnosis. So that might be a motivator for me. Or let's say you just want to lose weight, or you just want your cycle to get better, or you want to be fertile, or whatever it is. Set your goal. Secondly, take 7 days to try out the healthy foods. So during the 7-day period, don't take anything out. You don't have to go vegan yet, but I want you to figure out what you might like if you were vegan. So for breakfast, let's see, instead of milk on my cornflakes, I could have almond milk or soy milk or rice milk or oat milk. Fine, go to the store, you got 7 days, try it. I have sausage every morning. I never had vegan sausage. Wonder if it's any good. You got 7 days, try it. Every morning or every lunchtime, I go and have a submarine sandwich, but it's always a chicken sandwich or it's a cheese sandwich. Try the vegan one. So you go to the submarine place and they put lettuce and tomato and cucumbers and spinach and pickles and red wine vinegar, and they toast it for you. And if you like it, write it down. So you're writing down the possibilities that you might like. That takes 7 days. The final step is you've figured out your reason. You found foods that you like for 7 days. Now the third step is 3 weeks. For 3 weeks, I'm going to go vegan, but it's easy now because you already picked out the foods you like, and it's only 3 weeks, and you can do anything for 3 weeks. It sounds too easy, but at the end of 3 weeks, something has happened, and that is you are physically changing. You're losing weight. If you got diabetes, your blood sugar is better, your digestion is better, your mood is lighter, but also you find your tastes are changing. You're starting to like foods that you find. And you're also surprised that you don't miss what you're not having anymore. It's like when a person stops having whole milk and they go to skim milk, they find that they don't miss the whole milk anymore. But now we're making a different change. We're going to rice milk or almond milk, and we're going to vegan foods, and you discover this is kind of okay. And so then the person says, all right, I've done this. I know why I'm doing it. I did my 7-day to figure out what I like. I've done the 3-week trial. Now I like this. I'm going to keep doing it. This isn't so hard. This is easy. And that's the approach we use. So it works really, really well.
That's a great approach. I like the way people have almost a little free time beforehand to sample different types of foods so that it's not as scary when they dive in for the few days.
That's right. And by the way, if you have an iPhone or an Android, we have an app that's free. It's called the 21-Day Vegan Challenge, 21-Day Vegan Kickstart, sorry. And download it. It will guide you through your 21-day experience with menus and recipes and cooking videos and stuff in it. Very, very
Cool.
fun and exciting.
I will suggest that to people. That's awesome to know about. So what about supplements? Do people need any supplements if they're doing the vegan diet?
Yeah, they should have B12, vitamin B12. And frankly, everyone should have B12, vegan or not, but for vegans, it's essential. You really need it for healthy nerves, healthy blood. So if you're on a vegan diet, go to the health food store or the drugstore and get the smallest B12 that you can take, and do take it. Vitamin D is something that nobody needs if they get sunlight, if you live at the equator, and everybody needs if they don't get sunlight. But vitamin D, it comes from sunlight on your skin. So if you're not getting that, you should probably take vitamin D.
Okay, so two possible supplements, one definite and one possible if you're not in enough sunlight.
And let me give you the amounts. For vitamin B12, the amount that you need is 2.4 micrograms. You go to the store and you will discover there are no pills that small. They're all like 50 or 100. Just get the smallest one that you can. And some of them are called cyanocobalamin, methylcobalamin. They both work. Some people prefer methyl, but they're both effective. For vitamin D, you'll see D2 or D3. If it's marked vegan, then it is vegan, whether it's D2 or 3. And the amount that most doctors recommend is 2,000 IUs a day. Some recommend more, some recommend less, but that's a pretty standard recommendation.
Okay, well, thank you. So when you speak to your medical colleagues about nutrition, are they surprised about what nutrition can do?
Yeah, I think they are. Although less so now. When we started, people did not believe that diabetes could be reversed. I got to tell you, my mother was a case in point. My mother had a really high cholesterol level, and I pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and finally she went vegan. And when she went vegan, her own doctor called her up and said, you have to come back here. He didn't know she'd gone vegan, but her bad cholesterol had dropped something like 80 points. And so the doctor called her up and said, there's something wrong with our lab equipment. Please come back in and we're going to retest you. She said, no, I changed my diet. He could not believe that it could be that powerful. Nowadays, I think doctors get it. And by the way, for any doctors watching this, we have great resources. Nutrition CME is a website for continuing medical education. Nutrition CME, it's all free. We have a book called The Nutrition Guide for Clinicians. It's a download. You can download it. Anybody can download it. It's just called The Nutrition Guide for Clinicians. It's everything from Alzheimer's disease to varicose veins. So and you know, the best thing of all, Lisa, your heart would sing. In August, it's August 6th through 8th in Washington, D.C. We have the International Conference on Nutrition and Medicine. And to see 1,000 or more doctors all talking about plant-based diets. And it's 3 days of continuing medical education. It's CME approved by the American Medical Association. And it's just the most life-changing thing. So yes, medical practice is in fact changing and is embracing a healthier way.
You know, I think that the programs that you're running are changing the face of medicine today. I mean, this is profound to be able to offer doctors that opportunity to go in and make these connections and be able to implement them.
Well, they may need these connections because as patients, if patients go vegan and so forth, my hope is that all these doctors will end up unemployed. And so maybe they can then hook up with somebody else who can started a restaurant with them or something like that.
Yes, a new career.
You should be so lucky, but my hope is to keep people out of doctor's offices to the extent that it's possible.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for answering all the questions that I have. And I'm curious, we may have some of the people who've joined us on the webinar may have questions as well. So if you've tuned in and you do have a question, there's a little raise hands button that you can press, and then we can call on you and see if you have any questions. If you'd like to join in, please do let me know. I'm just looking to see. And also we are on live as well on Facebook, so I wanted to see if anyone there had a question or two.
While we're waiting for that, can I just
Yeah,
make a pitch for something?
of course.
I'm certainly hoping that people will pick up a copy of Your Body in Balance. I hope they find it useful. I hope it helps them tackle conditions that they have. But there's something that's more important than that. And that is, I'm hoping that people will share this knowledge with other people. Because the people who need this message the most are 12 years old or 14 years old. They're starting to have health problems that they didn't understand. They're getting hooked on foods. They think it's totally normal to have chicken nuggets for lunch and to have frozen pizza covered with cheese for dinner, to have string cheese at the 7-Eleven on the way home, to finish their meal with ice cream. And if they get acne or if they get menstrual cramps or they start gaining weight or something like that, they think it's genetic because it's in their family. They don't realize that we don't just give our kids DNA, we give our kids recipes, we give them taste for foods. So my appeal is that we share this knowledge. And to the extent that we can do that with social media or just pointing people to resources or something like that, we cannot be cloistered together and keeping this information to ourselves while the rest of the world is miserable. We have to really do everything we can to get this message out. And by the way, that includes your doctor. If you have an appointment with a physician, just like the people we've been discussing, they're people too, and they didn't get this in medical school. Some of it is too new for that anyway. We've just got to share this information. So my message is let's get motivated. Let's get loud. Let's share this information around.
Yeah, spread the word.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I'm going to invite Linda. If you have a question, I'm going to press a button so you can go ahead and ask it for us. Hi, Linda. Are you there? Let's see.
I wonder if she's muted. It looks like her little mute thing is on.
Can you hear me? Oh, here we
Hi,
go.
Linda. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wow. Okay, I typed my question, but I wasn't expecting for you to hear me. I said, can I take larger doses of B12, like weekly instead of daily? I've heard about that, I think.
Okay, great question. The answer appears to be yes. Although my suggestion is that you might take it maybe every other day, and I wouldn't take necessarily an enormous amount. Assuming that you're otherwise healthy and you don't have a particular B12 deficiency, if you're taking maybe something along the order of 500 micrograms and you're taking it every other day or something like that, that's probably perfectly fine. The data on this are a bit uncertain, but there is some suggestion that really overdosing with B12 is probably not a good idea. So taking a more moderate dose every couple of days is probably fine, as long as we don't skip it. That's important.
Oh, okay, thanks. I appreciate that. Of course, I have 5,000 microgram tablets, so that's too big, I guess.
Well, those are really made. It's an interesting thing. We used to think that some people just cannot absorb B12 at all. And so these people, they lack something called intrinsic factor. So they were getting injections once a month. And then researchers have found that if you give them a humongous dose orally, they seem to actually absorb that. So that research is continuing. But that's kind of what those are made for, those 5,000 microgram sizes. You know, that's way bigger than you need.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure. Thanks for your question.
Yeah, thank you, Linda, for joining. And we have a couple of other folks who've typed their questions into Q&A. And one person actually wanted to thank you for a great talk. And he is a physician himself, and also says a big supporter of the diet that you're prescribing. And he says he counsels all of his patients extensively on the benefits of, the initials are WFPB. So I think that's your program.
Whole food, plant-based diet, I think is what he's talking about.
Yes, okay. And then another question, moving on from this first one, was how do you deal with your physician colleagues who are not familiar with this approach, and also who don't believe it or think it's an extreme approach?
It's funny. Dean Ornish is a great researcher who is, of course, pioneered the use of plant-based diets along with a healthy lifestyle to reverse heart disease. And the results were phenomenal. And some people would say to him, well, it's so extreme. You know, you're not eating meat at all anymore and so forth. And he would often say, well, wait a minute, what are you proposing? And what some of these other doctors are proposing is cracking open your chest and putting, you know, new coronary arteries on, hoping that you don't stroke on the table, hoping you survive, recognizing you'll probably need to do it again down the road, and charging you how many tens of thousands of dollars for it. Eating broccoli is kind of easy. Going through surgery is something different. So anyhow, it is important to understand the evidence. And so luckily we have that. And when I write a book like Your Body in Balance, if you go to the back of the book, the statements are referenced and the materials are there. And I think doctors do appreciate that. To tell you the truth though, we don't get that much pushback. I think most doctors now have the view that this is really quite a healthy way to go. What they might say is they wonder if it's sustainable. And what they mean is there are so many seductions out there in life that who could resist? I understand that. But on the other hand, if you're looking at it is important not to judge your patient. It's important to let them make their own judgments. And there are a whole lot of people who have diabetes who don't want to lose a leg. They don't want to have laser surgery for their eyes. They don't want to have neuropathy. And for that person to switch from meat chili to bean chili and spaghetti with Alfredo sauce to spaghetti with tomato sauce is not a big sacrifice. And they are thrilled. There are plenty of 21-year-old women who are doubled up with pain every month. And for a doctor to never have told them that a diet change might help, you have to share this information. The patients will make up their own mind as what they view as extreme. And I got to tell you, as one who went vegan and quit smoking the same year, quitting smoking is hard. Becoming a non-smoker feels kind of extreme when you're hooked on nicotine. Going vegan is easy. There's always good things to eat.
That is true. That is very true. And we have another question for you from June Carter, who says, can a vegan diet help with ADHD?
Great question. For people who wonder what we're talking about, it's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. This goes way, way back. It started with Ben Feingold, who was a pediatrician. And he was the one back, I'm going to say it might have been the 1970s, perhaps, 70s or 80s, where he discovered that kids who were hyperactive, they couldn't sit still, they couldn't pay attention to things. He put them on diets where he removed artificial colors and flavors. And they did remarkably well. It turned out that some of those kids, it was true. And in other kids, it was just kind of a placebo effect where they thought they should do better. But then researchers have gone further where they've taken dairy out, taken sugar out, and caffeine and other things. And I think we need a lot more research here. But it does seem that when kids are on cleaner diets, they might behave better. Now, there's a school of thought that says something is actually wrong in the child's brain. Some people used to talk about it as minimal brain dysfunction. But if we can adjust it by taking toxins, and some things like toxins, when I say toxins, I mean things such as like caffeine or taurine in energy drinks or sugar or just junk. Take it out of the diet, some of these kids will do better. I think we need more research here, but the evidence that we have from what I have seen suggests that this would be a favorable road to go down. So yeah, I think we should do it.
Great. Well, hopefully that answered June's questions. And if anyone else has questions, it looks like typing them in. We have a couple others here that people have typed in. One is, how do you handle a vegan diet when you have Crohn's?
Well, for people who don't know, we're talking about Crohn's is an inflammatory bowel disease that can well up, and it sort of waxes and wanes, and it can lead to frequent hospitalizations. And a vegan diet is what you should be doing for Crohn's. A vegan diet is, in my view, an essential part of the treatment for inflammatory bowel disease, particularly Crohn's. There's a theory that has never really been proven, but there's a condition in cattle called Johne's disease that is caused by a microbe. And some people have thought that it's the same condition as Crohn's, and that a dairy-borne microbe might be responsible for Crohn's in humans. Who knows? There is some limited research that when people get away from dairy, they do a lot better. One of the speakers at our International Conference on Nutrition and Medicine in August is going to be talking specifically about Crohn's, because he's had massive success with it, and the diet that they use is a vegan diet. So there is never a reason for meat or dairy or eggs in the diet in any case, and certainly not for Crohn's.
Thank you.
Sure.
Another addendum to that question, also from Judy. She asks, what about SIBO? This could be SIBO or could be the initials.
Yeah, it's small intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
Okay.
I feel like I'm taking my board exams. What this is you normally will have some bacteria in your large intestine, as I mentioned earlier, and the contents of bacteria in your large intestine will change based on what you eat. But some people overgrow bacteria in their small intestine that's a little bit upstream. And so they go to the doctor and they say, Doc, I'm gurgly all the time. I'm gassy, and my digestion is terrible. And so to make a long story short, there are diagnostic tests for this that you can do. And if you have it there, in this case, you use an antibiotic. And you just use an antibiotic, you knock out the SIBO, and in some cases it comes back, in other cases it doesn't. So the testing is easy and well worth doing.
And is that something, like I think her previous question was, how do you handle a vegan diet when you have this kind of a disorder? Is there anything that a person would do differently?
What you do is you eat a vegan meal on the way to the doctor's, and then no, I'm kidding. SIBO is not caused by being a vegan, and a vegan diet is not a contraindication to it. All it means is that you need to get tested. If you're tested, you get treated. If you have SIBO, you get treated, and it is not a reason to bring animal products back into your diet.
Okay,
anyway, those are excellent questions. So in fact, all the questions have been great. I want to thank everyone for having me.
Yeah, these are great. And sorry for putting you through another round of exams. I want to thank you so very, very much for joining us today. This has been such a pleasure, and it's definitely one of the resources that I'm going to be sharing with people. We will be doing a replay of this, and people who are interested in sharing this information will be able to do that, especially if you're in the webinar. You'll get the replay link. Looks like we had a chat that came through. If you're up for one last question.
Sure, why not?
Last exam question here is that what about having a white blood count drop after going vegan, and also it's slightly below the normal range? Is this a risk, or is it just less junk in the body?
Okay, well, first of all, I should say for caution, people should always talk to their own doctor about their own lab tests. I'm not looking at your test, obviously. And so you, rather than just assume things are normal or not normal, do talk with your doctor about what your actual numbers are. However, white blood cells, red blood cells carry oxygen. White blood cells are looking for trouble. They are looking for bacteria that have gotten into your bloodstream, or viruses, or cancer cells, and their job is to knock them out. So it's not an uncommon thing when you're on a particularly clean diet to have your white blood cell count drop. And if you are infected with something, your white blood cells go high, really high. So doctors and laboratories will look at your white blood count. If it's on sort of the low end of normal and all of the shapes of the white cells are all in the normal range, doctors have no concerns at all. If it goes the other way and you've got a huge white blood cell count, that's worrisome. And if the shape of them changes, that's worrisome too.
Okay, thank you for that
Sure, you bet.
last question. And again, I wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. This was really our first activist author interview for our Activist Appreciation Month programming. And if you're curious or want to hear more, you can go to idausa.org/activist month. And we'll be sending some of these resources to those of you who joined us in the webinar, and also we'll be posting on the Facebook Live different resources too. It's really been a pleasure to speak with Dr. Barnard, and really I've become such a fan and looking forward to reading more of the book.
Well,
And
thank you for that. I got to tell you, Lisa, I'm celebrating today too, because Your Body in Balance actually comes out tomorrow. This is my galley version. So the actual book is out tomorrow, and I'm hoping people will go on Amazon and buy 100 copies and share 99 of them with people who need it. Let's veganize the world. Let's see what we can do to get the word out.
perfect. That sounds great. Well, I will be recommending your book. We actually run a support line for people who call. They may be activists, they may be people curious about a vegan diet. And when they call us, I do refer books, and I will be referring yours for sure. And if anybody out there wants to call us, you can do so at 800-705-0425 for support. So thanks to everybody for joining us, and especially to Dr. Barnard for taking some time out of your busy day to share your knowledge with us. And I hope you all have a wonderful Activist Appreciation Month, and that you can tune into more of our programs and really enjoy your evenings, and wonderful health with the vegan diet to all of you. Have a good night. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.